Okay, here's the final map. I'm sure most of you have seen it. Remember, this is on Google, but the map itself, the data actually comes from the Associated Press. So it's official, unofficial, but this is December, mid-December now, and so it's as official as it can get. As you can see, there's the 3 million votes that Raskin says they lost by. Under Harris's picture, there's 74,983, and under Trump's picture, there's 77,289. But those don't matter. That's not how the Electoral College works. If you drill in by state, this is Wisconsin. There's how many Democratic and Republican areas there were. And you look at the totals. 1,697,000 to 1,667,000. That's 30,000 votes. So he lost Wisconsin. She lost Wisconsin by 30,000 votes. Going into Michigan. $2,804,000 to 2,724,000. Well, that's 80,000 votes. 80,000. So far, that's 110,000 votes. Drilling on Pennsylvania. $3,542,000 to 3,421,000. Well, that's 120,000 votes. So far, that's 230,000 votes. Those three states would have swung the election. Just for craps and giggles, let's look at Georgia. $2,663,000 votes to 2,548,000 votes. That's 80,000 votes. I got that right? No, 120,000 votes. And that's amid all the bomb scare call-ins. South Carolina. Well, that wasn't even close. That's over 400,000 votes, 420,000 votes. But there was alleged bullet balloting going on in some of these states where ballots showed up with only Donald Trump's name on it. No voting for anybody else, down ballot, or anything. They were suspect, but no one requested a recount. Arizona. About 200,000 votes. 190,000 votes there. Now, I'm not trying to say Harris won the election, but what I'm telling you is Nevada, $46,000 votes. What I'm telling you is these are all votes for a constitutionally ineligible candidate. They don't matter. But the election wasn't as much of a so-called mandate as the Republicans are all claiming that it was. Sure, it looks bad. And it is bad. Because that many people were easily duped and have easily been duped by Trump. That and the fact that race is playing a huge part. Most of the intelligent people have moved to the coasts, or they're still in the Northeast, or they're still along the DC corridor there, above the Mason-Dixon line. And the numbers show it that popular vote, he won by 3 million votes. For a constitutionally ineligible candidate. It just doesn't matter. Constitutionally ineligible is constitutionally ineligible. That's the law. Congress should not count Donald Trump's votes without clearing him of the claims and objections through Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Now, the Supreme Court said that a state court cannot remove a federal candidate from the ballot. That's what they said in Trump v. Anderson. And that's all they said. Nothing else was really ruled. And in fact, the Colorado ruling still stands that he's an insurrectionist. Although it was just real sloppy, the way Crew did it, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. They just screwed that pooch royally. So anyway, listen to Chris Hayes and Jamie Raskin next. Okay, here is Representative Jamie Raskin responding to Donald Trump's claim that the January 6th committee people should be jailed. But that's not the issue. The issue here is you need to look at Mr. Raskin, and either he's got the greatest poker face in history, or he and the Democrats are literally clueless as what to do. There is a URL at the top. Here's the title, and it's on MSNBC. And the issue is very simple. They keep talking about democracy, the Constitution, all that BS. And they don't understand it. The Constitution is very clear. You take an oath to support or defend the Constitution, and then you go in insurrection or rebellion to the Constitution of the United States, then you cannot hold office again. Now, insurrection and rebellion are actually defined legally in the criminal law, as Mr. McConnell said right after the so-called insurrection. But it wasn't an insurrection. It was a rebellion by Mr. Trump against Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1. And the United States District Court for the District of Columbia, as in the appellate court, as the D.C. Circuit said, called it out as an Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1 violation. That was in their immunity ruling. Now that establishes it as public record that that's what he did. A court has declared that he violated that. That makes him constitutionally ineligible to hold office until Congress relieves that disability. I haven't heard Raskin or Goldman, anybody out of Congress, talk about the upcoming January 6th, 2025 electoral count vote. There is an objection that they've been sent that outlines at least 20 such rebellions. Now, in 18 U.S.C. 2383, which is where insurrection and rebellion are defined, rebellion is defined as a rebellion to the Constitution or congressional laws. That's congressional laws, not state laws, but federal laws. Now, Mr. Trump, in his entire campaign, and even what he's saying today, is an ongoing violation of 18 U.S.C. 241, in that it seeks to injure, oppress, threaten, and intimidate a class of people. It's just an ongoing violation of that congressional law. Mr. Raskin may well be a constitutional law professor, but he doesn't know how to read the Constitution. He obviously has no legal strategy, and if there's a political strategy, then the surprise is waiting on January 6, 2025. I don't think so. I think the Democrats are in a disarray. And he talks about it here, about how they lost an election by 3 million votes. Well, even that's wrong, because they lost the election by a little more than 200,000 votes across 3 states. In Wisconsin, it was 30,000, and in Michigan, it was about 120,000, and in Pennsylvania, it was about 100,000, 120,000. I don't know, whatever the map shows. And the way the Electoral College is structured, the rest of it doesn't really matter. Now, the Constitution is set up to protect the country from a populist president like this, who is also an idiot and a fool. People think that they vote for somebody and that's who has to go in there. No. In this case, especially no. Because Donald Trump has constitutionally disqualified himself on the very day that he was supposed to, well, not the very day, but on January 6, 2025, he disqualified himself. Now, Trump doesn't understand anything. He literally, truly does not understand anything. Everything he says is wrong. I don't think Mr. Trump is smart enough to actually lie his way to victory. He truly believes tariffs are paid by the other country. And people keep telling him it doesn't work that way. He keeps saying, I don't believe that. He said it in the Kristen Welker interview. If you listen to what he says, all of it is a lie and a disbelief, a misbelief. It's disbelievable because it's a misbelief of Trump. He is just that friggin' stupid. He's an useful idiot. But enough of my soapbox. Let's listen to what Mr. Raskin says, and you can see that there is a big problem here.
An absurdist quality to these people, but they're taking over the most powerful institutions in the government.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel there's two things. It seems to me that there's a certain line of thinking among Democrats, excuse me, which is that the sort of 100% resistance posture last time didn't work and has been discredited, and that arguments about democracy fell flat with the electorate, so no one wants to hear it, save it. And I just wonder what are all you going to do? What's everyone doing here as the incoming president is making very obvious noises and very obvious actual decisions designed to subvert the American rule of law and basically finish the project that he started on January 6th.
Now,
yeah.
there you have...
We lost an election by around...
There you have the point of the question. I'm not a Chris Hayes fan. He's pretty much a useful idiot. Kind of looks like it. But he's saying, what is Congress going to do? And, any American who has read the Constitution and the ECRA of 2022 or the Electoral Count Act itself originally knows that Congress has to approve the president. And if there's a Section 3 of the 14th Amendment violation, as there is with Trump, there's over 20, then all it takes is one-third of the Congress of both houses, which would be, 145 reps and about 34 senators, to say no. And his votes will not be counted, because he becomes what's called a constitutionally ineligible candidate who has votes not regularly given. He's constitutionally ineligible. He ran constitutionally ineligible. Joe Biden ran for Congress originally at 29 years old, constitutionally ineligible. But since that time and the time of swearing in, he had a 30th birthday, which made him constitutionally eligible. No such thing need happen with Mr. Trump. He's constitutionally ineligible. No birthday is going to save him. And there's only 3 things specifically mentioned in one place in the Constitution for being president: natural born, 35 years of age, and a resident for at least 14 years, I think it is, something like that. And all the rest of it, there's nothing there. But the rest of the Constitution has throughout it requirements to serve as a president. The 25th Amendment has a specific section that says if you're unable to discharge your duties as president. Well, what are the duties? The duties are to support and defend the Constitution and enforce the laws of America, not tear them down, not rebuild the government. That's not the role of the president. Any rebuilding of the government is the role of Congress. Trump's going to try and do it by executive order. He's going to try and remove birthright citizenship by executive orders, as the rumors have it. Anything that has a so-called rule of law component and a procedure, Trump doesn't care about it. He wants to throw it out. He wants to do it his way. So now listen to what Raskin has to say.
3 million votes. Joe Biden had beaten Donald Trump 4 years before that by more than 7 million votes. So obviously the country is closely divided. And so we're going to alter some tactics and strategies and figure out how the right has captured a lot of the social media, and I think we have been outflanked there. There was nothing wrong with the massive ground game and the door knocking and the canvassing that took place in the election, but there are clearly some changes that need to be made. We're not going to change our values. We're not going to abandon American constitutional democracy.
But you are.
Because we lost an election by 1% or 1.5%. We're not going to abandon the rule of law. We're going to be recruiting.
But you didn't lose by 3 million votes. You are abandoning the rule of law because the law says Donald Trump is constitutionally ineligible. And you're not even talking about that. You're not even looking in that direction. Unless this is a big secret. And there is an article where Mr. Raskin says that he's afraid of Trump's mob. Then this guy's clueless. He's a clueless, idiot, constitutional law professor. There's a saying in the law, those that can't be lawyers teach. And that's what he does. I wouldn't hire him to be my lawyer for anything. The guy doesn't speak any kind of strategy. Everything he just spewed says nothing. We need to recruit new people. All that is the absolute BS. You need to realize what's going on in Congress. These people are scared. They don't have protection details. They don't have Secret Service protection. They're afraid of the Trump mob. Mr. Hayes, who's married to a lawyer, he has a better feel for what's going on, which is why he asked, what are you doing? What are you going to do? This guy's already violating the law. He doesn't call out 18 U.S.C. 241. And that's what's wrong. These so-called talking heads, MSNBC, all of them, they don't speak in any type of term that is useful to Americans. They preach at you, and then they have no solution. They offer no solution. They tease no solution. They just preach at you. So listen to the rest of what Raskin has to say.
And mobilizing hundreds of thousands of millions of more people to get out there and be leaders in this fight. What else can we do? This is not a game of volleyball or
what else can we do?
We're going to, quit the game or something. I mean, this is the fight of our lives that we're in now.
All right, Congressman Jamie Raskin, thank you for your time tonight.
But he did quit the game. And he says, I'm clueless. What else can we do? Really? 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 You're clueless. That's why everybody needs to write their congressman and tell them they need to object to Trump. That's what the Constitution says, that you keep talking about, that you want to support and defend. You're not doing it. The Constitution says he's constitutionally ineligible to hold office ever again. Start there. Call for the vote. Call for a point of order that he's constitutionally ineligible. Now, the Supreme Court in Trump v. Anderson did a word salad order. They did what Mr. Ludwig, Judge Ludwig, said he calls a statecraft order. It's got a lot of words and basically says nothing. There is one section in it that's I'll try and bring up next, that basically says Section 3 of the 14th Amendment activates on conduct and nothing more. That means if you do the deed and someone knows you did the deed and they prove that you did the deed, then Section 3 is activated on you. We all know that Donald Trump created this fake elector scheme. We know that he tried to stay in power. That's not the issue. You don't even need the evidence. The evidence is there. The court has declared that is what he did. He did it. The court declared he did it. The fake elector scheme is well known publicly. It's in the public record. It's in the January 6th report. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is active upon him. You cannot count his votes until 2/3 majority in both houses votes to relieve that disability. And then wait, there's more. There's at least 20 objections to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment violation, including the Haitian thing, eating the dogs and cats, where they threaten to injure, oppress, intimidate, those Haitians with the dogs and cats thing. It goes on and on. Nobody speaks to using our law as a regulatory mechanism. Hayes asks, what's going on here? What are you going to do? It's a fair question. Probably one of the better questions he's ever asked, and Raskin dances around like, I don't know, we don't have a clue. So, I think the next thing comes up is the NBC Splash. You're welcome to go there and watch this yourself. There it is. Okay, here's some of the language from the objection that's at sadpac.com. There's the link at the top there if you want to go and download it. This is what the Supreme Court said. Quote, Section 3, unlike other provisions of the 14th Amendment, prescribes conduct of individuals. It bars persons from holding office after taking a qualifying oath and then engaging in insurrection or rebellion, nothing more. Okay, that's a funky way to say it self-executes. What that means is there is nothing more need to be done. There's no indictment, no charges, nothing. Just the public record that exists that you did the deed, the public record that defines that it was an insurrection or rebellion. Okay, forget insurrection because that's hard to prove. Rebellion is the magic word. Rebellion to the Constitution of the United States or congressional laws. Nothing more. That is the ruling that is most important from the Supreme Court. Prior to that, they wrote, the case raises a question whether, in addition to Congress, may also enforce Section 3, a state. We conclude that states may deny persons holding or attempting to hold state office, but states have no power under the Constitution to enforce Section 3 with respect to federal offices, especially the presidency. End quote, which was followed by, quote, its final sentence empowers Congress to remove any Section 3 disability by a 2/3 vote by each House. The text imposes no limits on that power, and Congress may exercise it at any time as the respondents concede. See the brief for respondents at page 50. In fact, historically, sometimes Congress exercised this amnesty power protection post-election to ensure that some of the people chosen candidates could take office. And there's a footnote 2. The 2 refers to footnote 2. The converse is true. can also use it to enforce Section 3. But the obvious fact is no enforcement action is necessary. He is constitutionally ineligible by the act of the deed, the public record of it, and the identification of it. In the D.C. Circuit immunity ruling in Judge Chutkan's case, the D.C. Circuit called out specifically Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1 as a violation of the Constitution in Trump's fake elector scheme and attempts to stay in power beyond 4 years. That is both the declaration by the court and the public record that it happened. There is no defense to that. Then there are 20 more, or I should say 19 more, such objections and violations of Section 3. Now, you're welcome to go download this. It goes into detail. It has video proof. But it's not just me saying that. Let's see if we can find another lawyer who says the same thing. This was sent to them all ready to go. And unless they're clueless, which it appears they are, or they're scared, which it appears they are, this will end it. Trump will not take the presidency again. Sure, half the country will be irritated. But you know what? Somebody needs to firmly explain this is the Constitution. You don't like it, leave the country. Pack up, leave the country, denounce your citizenship, go somewhere else, do like Assad did, run to Russia where you can live. Maybe. Okay, here's another section of sadpack.com where Glenn Kirshner explains exactly what the Supreme Court said. Now, Mark Elias, who is not a lawyer I would hire, got it wrong, but listen to what Glenn Kirshner said. Here's the link at the top.
The first question, Glenn, that I'm hearing from quite a few people is, how does the 14th Amendment apply here? Because I know that we've heard from courts in California, in Colorado, that Donald Trump is an adjudicated insurrectionist, and so how does that not preclude him from being able to take office?
Yeah, Brian, great question. And this is my first live stream experience, so everybody please be gentle with me. I don't really know what I'm doing, but Brian is in the driver's seat, so I'm feeling confident. Look, the 14th Amendment language could not be more clear, right? It says if you take an oath of loyalty to the Constitution, which a president does, and you thereafter engage in insurrection or give aid and comfort to insurrectionists, you're disqualified. You can't serve in office, federal, state, or local. The only way you can serve in office is if 2/3 of Congress, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, vote to remove the disqualification, remove the disability. Now, we know Donald Trump is an adjudicated insurrectionist. There was a trial held out in Colorado, and the judge ruled after she heard from the witnesses that Donald Trump engaged in insurrection. The Supreme Court of Colorado affirmed, agreed with that. Donald Trump is an insurrectionist. The Supreme Court said, well, you know, the 14th Amendment doesn't say an insurrectionist can't be on a primary ballot, so we're not going to let Colorado keep him off the primary ballot. To which I say, fair enough, it doesn't say that. But you know what it does say? He can't be sworn in as president. He can't hold office unless the Congress votes to remove that disqualification. That's the Constitution. And I expect, Brian, as we move toward January 6th, when it will be time to, certify the results of the presidential election, we're going to be hearing from constitutional scholars, both in and out of Congress, perhaps guys like Jamie Raskin, that we need to have a discussion about the 14th Amendment's disqualification and whether Donald Trump should be permitted to take the oath of office or not. I'm not pretending it's going to put a stop to Donald Trump being sworn in, but it's an open legal issue.
Glenn, let's see what other questions we can go into here. And I do agree that I think there's a difference between what the right thing to do is and what this Republican-controlled government will actually do. And I think it's important to take that into account and not kind of wish cast that just because it's laid out in the plain text of the Constitution that means that the Republican Party, in whatever form they're in, whether it's the Supreme Court, the Senate, or the House, is gonna decide blindly one day that they're gonna defer the Constitution over Trump. That's clearly not the case. Moving over to...
And here we have Brian Tyler Cohen, non-attorney, ex-receptionist, dickhead that doesn't know the difference between politics and law. If the law is there, you enforce the law. You don't word salad around and out of it. Here's the deal. If Donald Trump is sworn in, he's an illegitimate president. Anyone could bring a quo warranto action in the D.C. District Court and literally order him removed from office. There would be no impeachment. There would be no need for Congress to be involved. Congress did not do its job. An ordinary citizen, after pushing the DOJ to do its job, which they wouldn't because it'd be a Trump DOJ, could get the district court to order his removal from office. Now, never been done before, and he'd fight it, and I don't know what would happen. But he's an illegitimate president. It just seems that America doesn't have any, shall we say, balls to enforce its own law. But this isn't the only guy that said it. Neil Katyal said the same thing. And Judge Ludwig basically said the same thing. And those are coming up next, where Judge Ludwig explains the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment violation to Nicole, and there's the URL if you want to go view it. And he's a bit slow, but he makes it clear that Section 3 activates itself. After this was filed, went on MSNBC 3 days later and laid out the problem with the Colorado suit, Minnesota suit, and how and why the insurrection had nothing to do with it that we think of on January 6th. Of course, Nicole, she wanted to understand it so much, she jumped right over him trying to explain the difference between the Constitution of the United States in rebellion against and the physical insurrection. That clip is next.
The effort to overturn the 2020 presidential election was not and is not politics. This is, as we now know from the indictments of the former president by the Department of Justice and Jack Smith, these were grave crimes against the United States of America. Perhaps almost as grave as would have been treason. The question under the Constitution, and we're talking now about the 14th Amendment, Section 3, as you read, is whether or not the former president engaged in an insurrection or rebellion against the United States Constitution, the question is not whether he engaged in an insurrection or rebellion against the United States of America or the authority of the United States of America. That's the issue that's at stake. That's the issue that will eventually have to be decided by the Supreme Court of the United States. Well, Professor Tribe and I have followed and monitored the various state and federal court proceedings.
If the Congress votes to remove the disqualification and say you've paid your penance or whatever, then you can run. So there is actually here a democratic process the way there isn't for, say, the natural-born citizen.
The former president's lawyers are not arguing their case under Section 3. They are arguing that the former president did not engage in an insurrection or rebellion against the United States of America. That is a difficult case, but it's still a provable case. That's exactly what I want to say today.
Okay.
Focus on the distinction. Section 3 disqualifies one who has engaged in an insurrection or rebellion against the Constitution of the United States. Now, that case can be made, as I've said publicly, by proving that Donald Trump had a plan and that he attempted to overturn the 2020 presidential election and remain in power in direct contradiction and violation of what's known as the executive vesting clause. The executive vesting clause is very simple. That's just the clause in the Constitution that prescribes the term for the President of the United States as being 4 years. Mm-hmm. And that clause says, by terms, that the President will serve a 4-year term and a 4-year term only unless he is elected or re-elected to the office of president. So when Donald Trump tried...
So that is Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1. Let's continue.
To overturn the 2020 presidential election that he had lost fair and square to then candidate and now President Joe Biden, he violated the executive vesting clause of the Constitution. That is what I have said is the quintessential insurrection or rebellion against the Constitution of the United States. And so
the refusal to leave office, the refusal to concede, and the refusal to carry out the tradition of a peaceful transfer of power is the damage, is the violation of the Constitution.
It is the rebellion against the Constitution of the United States. And so back to what the former president's lawyers are arguing, that they don't want to argue that. They want to argue instead that the former president didn't engage in an insurrection against the United States. They want to argue that he was not responsible for the riot on the United States Capitol. That's
they're going to play semantics and say, how was he supposed to know? Be there, be wild would make them
exactly.
But you're saying that's not what Section 3 of the 14th Amendment says.
Exactly, and I've not followed closely these two cases, but I've followed them a little bit to the extent that I know that that's what they're arguing. I know that that's not the issue, mm-hmm. And I've been concerned over this past week, frankly, that by the various courts' reactions to that argument, namely, it's not been clear from the court's questions that the two courts that I'm talking about now in Colorado mm-hmm. and in Minnesota mm-hmm. have focused just yet on the actual issue.
Because you're saying they're taking the bait on questions and evidence about violence, and you're saying that the evidence, frankly, the evidence exists in emails that I think Trump is on the record in the congressional probe as having seen, where Eastman circulates the document and Trump is for it.
That's exactly right, although I wouldn't have worded it the way you did.
Cue the record scratch. Because here, well, that is the entire dealio. He is constitutionally ineligible, and Congress cannot just ignore it and count his votes. That would be a violation of the Constitution itself. That's the same as counting the votes for a 34-year-old or a person who is not natural born, or hasn't been in residence here for 14 years. It's just that how you disqualify yourself is a little bit different. But it's there in the public record and in the court record. And I think Trump knows it. He knows it. He knows he may not get through January 6th, 2025. And Raskin and Goldman and everybody else, they don't want to give Trump the opportunity to summon the mob again. So maybe they're tight-lipped and not saying anything. But at the same time, I don't think the country needs to go through all these clown car shenanigans about who he's going to appoint and who he's going to name and, all this misdirect. The trouble is our media is stupid. If the media is going to report on something, you're going to report on law. Know the law, report on the law. Stop just saying stuff. How do these people get into confirmation hearings? How does Trump even become the president-elect? He's not the president-elect right now. He's a candidate with enough votes to be the president-elect. He can't be the president-elect until Congress relieves that disability. The first time around, Trump had never taken an oath to anything. He'd never been in the military. He's not an attorney. He'd never taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution. So Section 3 of the 14th Amendment would not have worked the first time around to keep him out. But now the second time around, even his racism keeps him out. Here's a clip of some years ago at the Gaming Commission where Trump takes a racist attitude about how people don't look like Indians. And the gaming commissioner just looks at him and says, well, I'll let you watch it.
Is this you discussing Indian blood? We're going to judge people by whether they have Indian blood, whether they're qualified to run a gaming casino or not?
That probably is me, absolutely. Because I'll tell you what, if you look at some of the reservations that you've approved, you, sir, in your great wisdom have approved, I will tell you right now, they don't look like Indians to me. And they don't look like the Indians. Now, maybe we say politically correct or not politically correct. They don't look like Indians to me, and they don't look like Indians to Indians. And a lot of people are laughing at it, and you're telling how tough it is, how rough it is to get approved. When you go up to Connecticut and you look, now, they don't look like Indians to me, sir.
Thank God that's not the test of whether or not people have rights in this country or not, whether or not they pass your look test.
Depends whether or not you're approving it, sir.
No, it's not a question whether I'm approving it. It's not a question whether I'm approving it. Mr. Trump, you know in the history of this country where we've heard this discussion before, they don't look Jewish to me. They don't look Indian to me. They don't look Italian to me. And that was a test for whether people could go into business or not go into business, whether they could get a bank loan. You're too black, you're not black enough.
Okay, here's our previous video. I'm going to try and go straight to a section where Michael Cohen describes that Judge Marianne Barry, who is Trump's sister, federal judge, says he's effing stupid. And I don't know if this is going to work, but let's see what happens.
Which is the main flaw of the triplex. I had heard from others that he had a fascination towards Adolf Hitler. In fact, it was his sister, Judge Barry, who had said it to me, that he had a fascination. She had said, well, when she found out, for example, that Donald was running for the presidency, she said to me, Michael, you need to make this stop. And I said, Judge, you're about the only one that he's really afraid of. Like, definitely afraid of. All right? You would have to be the one. Ivanka, Don, and Eric came to my office and asked me to help to stop this 2015, his announcement after he made those Mexico statements and so on. And he wasn't stopping for anything, which I explained to him. But she said, he's a deeply flawed individual. He ascribes to like the ideology of Hitler. He goes, but then she said to me, but worse than that, he's fucking stupid. And that's the judge who said that to me. Just like that. He's fucking stupid. And he's going to embarrass the entire family. No, that's what she said. I'm not joking. I'm not even trying to be comical. She dropped the F-bomb straight off the rip and so on. And it's true. We're seeing it. In fact, one time, and I wrote this in my book, Disloyal, that I was sitting with Trump and the general manager of Mar-a-Lago, who happens to be of German descent, and we were talking about an issue that had just taken place. I think it was Celine Dion had to cancel the New Year's, and they paid her over $1 million to appear and so on because she was having an issue with her throat. This is early on. And during our conversation about something which was obviously important, he stops the conversation and says to the general manager, he goes, I was just thinking, I bet your family chased Michael's family through the Red Forest. And I was like, boss, my father's a Holocaust survivor. He goes, yeah, that's why I'm bringing it up. I bet you that your family chased his family through the Red Forest. And I didn't know what to say. The general manager wanted to climb up his own ass and die because he's a decent, good man. He really is. He's like central casting for what you would want at a place like Mar-a-Lago, right? I mean, a really good man, and he didn't know what to say either. But thinking about that in retrospect, the fact that Donald even knows about the Red Forest and was able to equate that, to me, certainly validated what his sister had said years later, that he had a fascination with Adolf Hitler.
Well, that just shows you how juvenile Trump's thinking is. Any politician worth any weight of their own salt would never bring up such an insensitive thing as though it's a joke. So Trump has a mental problem in that, as his own niece, Mary Trump, says, his brain is still at the level of a 10 to 12-year-old. People voted for him because he's a demagogue, Trump, the apprentice Trump, blah, blah, blah. He's rich, blah, blah, blah. He's not. And they don't know. Trump figured out one thing. People are gullible and stupid. And all you have to do is play on both of those. Of those 400,000 or more millions, 400,000 of votes that were bullet ballots that only had Trump's name on them, if indeed they actually existed, in paper form. Because there's a question of that. And Kamala Harris did not call for a recount, so we'll never know. It's all past. Water under the dam. 400,000 bullet ballots only with Trump's name? That means those people are either illiterate, stupid, and gullible. They don't know anything about the down ballot people and know anything about that. All they do is, it's all Trump. Trump's controlling everything to them. And the sad reality is 21 to 25% of America is illiterate. You have to think about that. That means they're functionally stupid. They don't know anything. Many of them live in rural areas where there is no newspaper. All they get is information off the internet today via Fox and right-wing publications that they just accept as gospel, and then it's like in a holler, they're all telling each other the same lie, and so it becomes fact by, group lie. The problem is just that. That is a person who is unfit under the 25th Amendment to discharge the duties of the office. They have no interest in the Constitution. He has no interest in the rule of law. And he's simply constitutionally ineligible. The problem we really have is that Congress can't pull its head out its rear and realize that's their job. That's their duty. They have to put together a vote to relieve him of all of those objections, all 20 of them somehow, before he can be legally sworn in as president. Is it going to happen? Well, with people thinking like Brian Tyler Cohen, who want to word salad excuse the Republicans politically, that they're just not going to do it, instead of just enforcing the law, then no. That's how stupid Americans are. Brian Tyler Cohen illustrates how stupid Americans are. And Mark Elias, right there with him. You go back to the sadpack.com site and watch some of those videos that are interweaved into the problem with democracy and how to save it. And then you realize that tariffs, gas prices, all those things that everybody seems to think the president controls, they don't. Hit like and subscribe. Share this video with others, because this is the truth. MSNBC and other YouTubers, they aren't telling you the truth. They're echoing the echo chamber. Okay, here's Mark Elias on the left, Dan Goldman on the right. And Goldman is a true ex-federal prosecutor. You would think he knows better. Maybe he does. Mark Elias on the left there, just not an attorney I would ever hire. He looks like what he is, and he's been wrong many times. Many times. The most infamous being, I'm not concerned because come January 6th, Hakeem Jeffries will be the Speaker of the House. Okay, just make a blanket, bold prediction like that, and then you're wrong. After that, your credibility is for crap. This is the title of this one. It was posted December 13th, and 2024. There is the link at the top for the URL. I'm going to just play this, and I'm going to just rip to the middle of something Goldman is saying. And he says a lot of things, but you'll get the point. So let's just recap before we go listen to this. Trump's constitutionally ineligible. He is automatically constitutionally ineligible. People have said so, as you see previously, Neil Katyal, Judge Luttig. Actually, Lawrence Tribe has also said so. I just don't have a clip of him in this. And Glenn Kirshner has said so. As you saw in a previous piece of the clip, or I should say, Michael Steele has said he doesn't know what's wrong with people in Washington. They won't stand on principle. They won't stand on rule of law. They talk about it and they're not doing it. And that's the problem. Now, Dan Goldman acts like he hasn't got a clue what you can do. You know, he may not. He actually may not understand that you can be the minority and take the spot of the majority. It's not about winning. It's about stopping them. If it takes 2/3 of the House and Senate to relieve this disability of Trump, and you've only got a solid 1/3, well, then you can stop them with your 1/3. And the law automatically protects you and sustains the objection. Trump's votes would not be counted. Some lawyers are so obsessed with winning. We must have the positive vote. We must have the majority, that they can't see the backwards way into law. That it can also be about stopping the other side. And if they don't do anything, well, that's murky. Because the Constitution doesn't excuse that either. The Constitution says Trump is ineligible. He's constitutionally ineligible. The Supreme Court has said that it activates on conduct and nothing more. So that means even if Congress won't do its job and enforce Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, it still automatically executes. Now, maybe Roberts will swear him in, maybe Roberts won't. If Roberts was going to stand up for the Constitution, he would step up and say, "I'm sorry, Mr. Trump, I can't swear you in. You are constitutionally ineligible." And then he would summon Kamala Harris to the front and swear her in. You know, the Republicans would jump up and down like the children that they are, and they'd claim unfair, blah, 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 because they can't read. Some of them can, and some of them know Trump may have a problem getting past January 6th. They just don't want him to be able to summon a mob to D.C. again. Instead of being strong about it, like a military person would, and had the troops waiting for them, and actually willing to shoot, to maim and kill, to scare their crap out of them, will it be a civil war? No. Most people will cower and go home. They'll stop that crap. But you have to understand, much of America is illiterate. This is important to understand. 21 to 25% of America is illiterate. Those are the people who voted for Trump. Those are all the red states. These red states are rural areas. It's just a big expanse of geographic area that isn't populated by many people. And, you know, just because it's a big red area doesn't mean there's millions of people there. Most of the cities are Democratic. And most of the countryside is going to be Republican. Because they all hang with each other and they all run the church together and they, quite frankly, are all racist. They don't want those city folk in their yard. So let's see, Mark Elias is busy begging on YouTube and Patreon for money and subscriptions. If he's supposed to be the big-time democracy lawyer, why is he doing that? Why is he even begging for subscriptions? He runs Democracy Docket. I don't think there's a lot of money in what he's doing. And so he doesn't look very good begging. So let's see here.
And what I would say is that everybody needs to lean in a little bit. And lawyers can volunteer to help file lawsuits against, all sorts of things that are coming down the pipe. Birthright citizenship, Schedule F. I mean, all of this Project 2025 stuff, and I know a lot of the attorneys general are preparing that, and I think that lay lawyers, whoever you are, can certainly help.
Absolutely.
And then I think it's important for voices to be heard. It matters.
But you aren't listening.
And I think that we have to be strategic about it. We cannot chase every crazy thing Donald Trump says, as we did the first time around. And I say this all the time. You want to try to eradicate birthright citizenship with an executive order? Go ahead. Eat your heart out. It will go to the courts, and even the Supreme Court can't read the 14th Amendment any different way than it clearly is. And so let them spin their wheels on that. We should not waste our energy on that, but we should be focused on the things that really matter. And that way we gain more credibility and we can be more effective. But everybody's voice really does matter. We'll certainly be here fighting as much as we can, amplifying the concerns that we have. But democracy is really rooted in the people, and the more people are engaged and active, and whether that's letters or emails or calls or protests or what have you, that stuff matters. I'll tell you, I pay attention to the calls I get. I pay attention to the emails I get, and every elected official does too.
Yeah, bullshit.
You think your Republican colleagues do?
Yes.
And that's BS. Goldman has no fax number. He has no email address. You can't contact him. You could send him a letter, snail mail. I'm not so sure he's going to pay attention. He's a representative, which means he's from New York. He doesn't have to technically pay attention to anything from anybody who's not out of his district. So that's BS. The second BS is that they're here fighting for democracy. We're doing everything in the rule of law. No, you're not. All you have to do is get all your other little minions together, all your little cats that you can't herd, and object. 145 reps, 34 senators objecting under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the 20 things that Trump has done. The most blaring is Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1. Just stops him from being president. His votes will be set aside and not counted. Or did you not read the ECRA of 2022? My guess is he did not. He's an attorney, but just because they're an attorney, both of these people are attorneys. Elias, he didn't read the ruling from the Supreme Court. If he did, he misunderstood it, because it was a statecraft word salad designed to confuse you. And the Supreme Court only said two things in there that were important. A state cannot enforce their election law against a federal candidate in their courts. And Section 3 of the 14th Amendment activates on conduct and nothing more. That means it self-executes. The rest of it was all a lot of hyperbole. A lot of word salad to fill pages to make it look like misdirection. Trump remains constitutionally ineligible. Nobody can break that. The Supreme Court could not relieve that. Only Congress could relieve that with a 2/3 majority vote. And they can't relieve that by just counting his votes. They have to take affirmative action to vote on the objections to his Section 3 of the 14th Amendment violations. And the most obvious one was the Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1. But the most relevant one lately is 18 U.S.C. 241, because Trump is threatening everybody. Trump is trying to oppress everybody. Trump is trying to injure people. Trump is trying to harass them. And that's what the statute says. Anybody who does that is guilty of violating 18 U.S.C. 241. Why won't Elias and Goldman figure that out? You know, this is what Michael Steele says. He doesn't understand what's wrong with people. Now, Steele is a lawyer, too. But I'm going to leave it at that. Because the truth is, you can't respect either one of these bozos. Because both of them are off track. Elias begging for money on YouTube. He has no respect. I have no respect for him. And Goldman is clueless. If he's not clueless, he's another magic poker face with a surprise coming for Trump January 6, 2025. I would be shocked to see it happen. Many members of Congress have been sent faxes asking them, who's going to have the courage to stand up, call for a point of order? Who's going to circulate that objection? You know, who's going to do the people's bidding? Now, many representatives don't have fax numbers. Most of them don't have email addresses that you can send an email to with an attachment. And there is a way to do it through the House, through the House mail server and the Senate mail server. But, you know, you have to figure it out. They're not as accessible as they want to lead you to think that they are. It's BS. And here's the final thing. The Republicans have got their story butt backwards. Literally, much wildlife of the planet Earth has better sense. Can't speak English, can't speak a word. They know how to be nicer, kinder, and more considerate. They know that humans can help them. You will find story after story after story where wildlife comes up to humans and in its own way asks for help. And then when they're helped, they're grateful. They'll bring gifts. They'll come back again and again. There's no reason to fear them. You've just made a friend for life. It's no different than a dog. You know, bears, tigers, elephants. I have to exclude snakes because they don't seem to have a brain. But over and over again, even sharks. A shark came up to a diver, had a hook in its fin, you know, asked for help to get the hook out, stood there while he did it, and the shark was grateful. Shark could have just as easily attacked and killed her. A dolphin, same thing. A hook caught in its fin came up to a diver to help and stood there, waited while she worked the hook out. And, dolphins are mammals. They breathe air. The dolphin said, hey, I got to get up and get some air. Came back down. I mean, he didn't say that, but that's what it did. The dolphin just moved back and went up for air and then came right back down. Why is it wildlife have better sense than humans? Well, what many people don't understand is that all humans aren't modern anatomical human. Many of them are still half ape. Many of them are still half Neanderthal. They have the genes of Neanderthals. Now, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But what you will find is, if you look closely, many of them have low to no forehead. They have a slanted back forehead. They bumps over the eyes. They're dim-witted. You might think that, Neanderthals were, died out years ago. The reality is many of them ended up in English jails, French jails, ended up in European jails because they would steal. And then when the colonies were established and the United States was being established, Oh yeah, they did. They emptied the jails and sent them all here to America. Now that's another story for another day. You can go look that up. But in the end, this is the kind of crap. Let's see if we'll just spin backwards and see something else Goldman is saying. Because he actually said that Republicans need to grow a spine.
For his personal gain. If he pardons them, not only will they be lionized and supporters, but he absolves to some degree himself from that conduct, which is where his interest always lies. And so, yes, I think certainly the practical effect of having militia members now feeling like they have the support of Donald Trump and they're can do whatever they want is really dangerous. These are dangerous people, a lot of them, or some of them at least. But the fact that he would do something like that bastardizes the pardon power even beyond what he has done before, which was also to bastardize the pardon power. I mean, traditionally, pardons only went through the pardon attorney office at the Department of Justice. And Donald Trump has just completely eliminated that pathway and doesn't care and does it for his own personal interests. And so again, it just undermines our system. It undermines our rule of law, our system of justice, because it then becomes a question of whether you are an associate of Donald Trump's or an adversary of Donald Trump's. And that's what he wants to set up, because he wants the threat in an authoritarian way to force people to choose to either be with him and get the benefits of our system and our government, or suffer the consequences if they're not with him, if they're an adversary.
So, again, it's a 35-minute interview. You're welcome to go listen to it all you want. I'm not a fan of Mark Elias. Dan Goldman, it makes sense all the way through. But the bottom line is this. You want to stop Donald Trump, Goldman? Get you and the rest of the Democrats together and sign the objection. Raise the point of order, if nothing else. Force the vote on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Hell, recognize in the first place that he's constitutionally ineligible. I can understand waiting until the last minute on January 6th so that he can't summon a mob. But in the end, stop BSing the country. Stop giving us a whole lot of hooly bully shit, because it's all bullshit. Grow a pair, get the rest of your Democrats to grow a pair, and tell Donald Trump, no. You will not be president. You are constitutionally ineligible. You did that to yourself January 6th, 2021. We are not going to excuse it. We are not going to let you back in. And the fact that these people voted for you is because you lied to them, you manipulated them, and many people probably would not vote for you again after they have seen what you are already now beginning to do to tear the country up. Now, here's Michael Steele. He's basically saying, give it back to them the way they're giving it to us. Wake up, Democrats. Stop being weenies.
And now, for a moment of clarity.
When you take it in the fullest context of what Director Wray said today in his stepping down, and I solidly applaud the idea and his continual emphasis and use of the rule of law and principle and standing on the principle. Those are words. The problem we have had that nobody in Washington actually wants to do what the words require you to do. Stand on principle. That means standing firm in the face of the onslaught from MAGA and Trump.
that means flipping them the bird for once and telling them to kiss your ass. That means, come at me, baby. You ready? Let's do this. I'm the director of the FBI, right? And you want to dance? Let's dance. I'm here. You want me gone? Fire me. Because that's the principled position. The unprincipled position is what Trump is doing and the way he's doing it.
And he may be talking about Christopher Wray resigning, but what he's saying is politicians in Washington are spineless today. And that means the Democrats are spineless today. Now, he may be the ex-Republican National Committee chair, but it is a moment of clarity. They're spineless today. And they need to grow a pair, come at them with the Constitution, and tell them, sorry, this is what the Constitution says. We're going to follow the Constitution. You screwed yourself on January 6, 2021. You made yourself constitutionally ineligible. You didn't come to Congress and ask for relief from that disability. You just ran for office like you wanted to anyway. Supreme Court said, okay, you can stay on the ballot. They never said that you could be sworn in. You misinterpreted because you're not a lawyer, Mr. Trump. You're not a lawyer. You haven't got a brain for legal things. You think you understand stuff because your sister was a judge. You think that you can manipulate the legal system. But the Constitution says no. It's not us saying no. It's not us, the Democrats, saying no. It's the Constitution saying no. And we're not going to say yes to excuse you from it. So that's the long and the short of it. It's a standing on principle. Do the Democrats have the balls? I don't know.